Well, guys, it seems like Disney might be finally learning their lesson.
Disney has canceled one of its upcoming live-action remakes after Snow White flopped.
The news broke like a thunderclap in the entertainment world, echoing through studio lots and fan forums alike. Disney, the behemoth built on generations of beloved stories, has reportedly conceded that its once reliable cash machine, the live-action remake pipeline, is grinding to an immediate halt. Studio representatives, speaking on background, confirmed what insiders suspected since rumors first swirled around the disastrous reception of the upcoming Snow White adaptation. In a single, decisive move that stunned industry observers, the company allegedly pulled the plug on every in-development reimagining of its animated classics. They flopped hard trying to rewrite history with Snow White, and the fallout has been catastrophic, forcing a potential end to an entire era of Disney filmmaking.
They flopped so hard in Snow White, trying to be brazen and rewrite history and representative of its modern audience, and we all saw how that went.
For years, the Mouse House treated these nostalgic reinterpretations as guaranteed blockbusters. Films like Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, and The Lion King minted billions globally, even when critics were lukewarm or hostile. But the situation surrounding Snow White proved uniquely volatile. Early buzz already hinted at a project wobbling under clashing creative visions, amplified by the casting of Rachel Zegler, who critics labeled the most insufferable girl boss narcissist, seemingly determined to undermine the source material she was hired to embody. Few, however, foresaw the sheer avalanche of backlash that would ultimately force Disney's hand. Whispers of internal turmoil escalated into a roar after test screenings reportedly leaked, painting a picture of a film that failed both fairy tale traditionalists and those seeking modern sensibilities. The uproar grew so intense, executives feared the negativity could irrevocably stain the entire Disney brand if similar projects continued.
There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Yeah. Weird.
Rachel Zegler became the unlikely epicenter of this cultural hurricane. In a hyper-connected climate where every interview clip becomes amplified 1,000-fold, her spirited defense of the remake's updated themes, particularly her dismissal of the 1937 original's perceived outdated elements and the prince as a stalker, drew intense fire. Traditionalists felt the studio was erasing the gentle innocence of a masterpiece. Rumors, regardless of veracity, spread like wildfire, including an alleged incident where Zegler erupted at critics during a press junket, supposedly leading to her brief detention by security. Hashtags demanding boycotts trended worldwide, drowning out any attempts at damage control. As one commentator bluntly put it, every time she speaks, she gets less likable.
God.
All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby.
What? So yeah, my agent would have punched me in the face.
Every time she speaks, she gets less likable. There's some clip of her on the internet in her Snow White outfit saying, "Every hour I am in the outfit of Snow White wearing the dress. All 18 hours, I deserve to be paid for every single one."
The film's creative trajectory was reportedly precarious long before the public relations nightmare exploded. Anonymous crew members described a chaotic production plagued by last-minute rewrites, breakneck reshoots, and a constant tug-of-war between preserving nostalgia and injecting modern relevance. One technician allegedly confided they were stitching together two completely different movies and hoping the seams wouldn't show. Test audiences, however, saw the seams immediately, complaining of jolting tonal shifts, goofy comedy jammed against somber lectures on empowerment. When rough footage inevitably leaked online, showcasing unfinished effects and placeholder audio, it triggered fresh waves of condemnation. Viewers slammed cheap-looking visuals and dialogue that sounded more like social media slogans than timeless prose. Disney's marketing machine found itself scrambling, its statements about misunderstandings falling on deaf ears. The consensus solidified. Snow White had strayed too far.
I was scared of the original cartoon. I think I watched it once and then I never picked it up again.
And Disney decided to hire the most insufferable girl boss narcissist that exists on Earth, who hates Snow White.
Behind the scenes, panic reportedly set in. Top executives huddled in emergency meetings. One high-ranking manager allegedly compared Snow White to Cats, a resource-guzzling spectacle destined for meme infamy, not box office glory. While some cautioned against overreacting, the mood shifted decisively once financial analysts weighed in. Projections showed that sustained negative sentiment would make breaking even a struggle, especially with ballooning marketing costs needed for rehabilitation. A single flop is absorbable. A pattern, however, could devastate Disney's synergistic empire built on pristine brand perception. The tipping point reportedly arrived with a leaked internal report detailing an alarming scenario. Continuing the live-action slate risked a cascading loss of goodwill among core Disney families. If that support eroded, merchandise sales, theme park attendance, and streaming subscriptions could all suffer. Snow White wasn't just a problematic film, it was a potential contagion.
Is she not seen as box office poison now because of all of her antics? I'm sorry, but I don't really care what happens with this movie. I really hope her career is pretty much over. I'd be thrilled to see that.
Bob Iger, known for cold-eyed pragmatism, ultimately made the call. A directive citing strategic realignment and proactive brand stewardship, corporate shorthand for crisis containment, ordered the shelving of all live-action reimaginings. Projects in pre-production were halted. Teams deep into post-production on other titles faced reassignment. Artists who'd poured months into elaborate designs learned via memo their work was now vaulted. Social media went nuclear. Defenders of the cancellation hailed it as a victory for preserving Disney's timeless magic. Others lamented the loss of potentially inventive takes, dissecting whether Snow White failed due to messaging, execution, or simple remake fatigue. How had Disney misjudged the zeitgeist so completely this time?
Because there was so much backlash to her arrogance and just inanity.
So I get to vote as a shareholder of Disney. My stock has plateaued over the last 10 years.
One factor was the perception that Snow White tried to be everything at once. Winking meta humor 1 minute, solemn societal commentary the next, never achieving a cohesive tone. Ziegler's public relations woes were another combustible element. Her confident defenses often read as condescension, further alienating fans sensitive to radical changes. Even Greta Gerwig's initial attachment, once a sign of auteur vision, became a footnote amid rumors her original treatment was compromised by studio demands for spectacle. The fiasco triggered retrospective scrutiny of Disney's entire strategy. The Little Mermaid's muted global haul, Pinocchio's tepid reception, Snow White magnified every prior crack into a glaring red flag. The era of safe bets looked anything but.
I'm a narcissist.
The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so.
Okay. For the last 10 years, Disney, you ain't done shit.
As Disney braced for fallout, rival studios reportedly began auditing their own remake slates, fearing similar internet maelstroms. Original scripts gained traction, merchandising partners scrambled, uncertain about planned tie-ins. Within Disney, morale seesawed. Story artists sensed an opening for fresh IP, accountants fretted over enormous sunk costs. The internal rumor mill buzzed about reassignments and severance packages. Op-eds accused Disney of corporate hubris, mistaking nostalgia for guaranteed loyalty. Yet one fact was undeniable. Snow White had so thoroughly poisoned the well that Disney, for the first time in modern memory, slammed the brakes on a lucrative formula. Financial analysts estimated halting the slate could save nearly $1 billion, but the potential revenue left behind was secondary to stemming the reputational bleed.
If she never opened her mouth and she didn't do all this nonsense, people would have gone and watched the movie.
Rebuilding trust is now paramount. Internal communications suggest a pivot towards original animated features, smaller-scale live-action fantasies, and new streaming characters, rediscovering the thrill of uncertainty, as one executive ironically put it. Without the baggage of decades-old storylines, creators might address modern themes more organically. If Disney channels its vast resources into bold, original storytelling, it could spark a renaissance. Of course, skeptics wonder if this is a permanent ban or a calculated pause. Future leadership might test the waters again, promising projects like a quirky Hercules adaptation and a high-budget Sword in the Stone are immediate creative casualties, leaving some to lament an overcorrection.
and generally attacking men and suggesting that Snow White was a story and all this.
Snow White itself remains in limbo, its theatrical release date hanging by a thread. Insiders suggest a minimal rollout or a quiet Disney Plus drop, acknowledging it's no longer a flagship, but a cautionary relic, the fossilized remains of a strategy that died under its own weight. Rachel Zegler must navigate the strange aftermath, her career trajectory irrevocably altered. While sympathy exists, the optics of her public statements will be dissected in PR seminars for years. Greta Gerwig, meanwhile, likely pivots to projects offering more creative autonomy. Across the fan community, closure mingles with uncertainty, but both sides agree. Disney's capitulation signals a sea change. Analysts will endlessly debate the exact moment the remake model cracked, but the truth likely lies in a perfect storm of creative indecision, social media amplification, and audience fatigue. What matters now is how Disney rebuilds. The company has weathered storms before, but the end of the live-action remake dominance forces a profound re-evaluation of the Disney magic. If imagination and heart truly form the foundation, perhaps the next era will embrace those pillars anew. For now, all eyes watch the aftermath of an unprecedented corporate retreat, wondering, what comes next when nostalgia no longer pays the bills?